no one really knows what will happen when you die. In the world of Ravean, it's the same yet different for everyone. Each soul takes its turn along the same river Styx, finding its final endpoint across the domain of some god or goddess they've pleased, or under the watch of the devil they've promised their soul to, or somewhere else. This is the story of Flawed's journey through the afterlife. After his discussion with the Dark Deceiver, Flawed's soul left from this meeting place. He stood there at the edge of the banks of the river and stood waiting, 2 gold pieces in hand. He waited, unsure of what to do. His goddess was here, or she had just been. He stood now on the dark, stony edges of this dark river, almost like velvet flowing off into the shadow. He could hear the howling of wind, angry screeches and roars in the distance. And soon, he heard another noise. The creaking of wood, a gentle splash of the water. Standing there, he watched as a figure came rowing a boat up the stream of the river. A hooded, cloaked figure of what appeared to be a half-elven man, wielding a long pole that he pushed the boat upstream with. Pulling up to the shore in front of Flawed, the man wedged the boat into one of the rocks and stood waiting. Unsure and hesitant if he could trust the stranger, Flawed stood, just looking at him, and the man rolled his eyes and held his hand out, saying not a word, almost as if he knew what he must do. Flawed handed the 2 coins over to the man, who smiled and gestured towards the edge of the boat. Boarding the ship, Flawed watched as the man pushed them off from the banks of the river and deep into the middle of the river Styx. This man said nothing. He might as well have been a mute as they traveled their way through the river Styx. And as they made their way, he heard the sounds of screeches and battle grow louder, and looked off to the right where he saw this red, bright light, and then off to the left where he saw this deep, vibrant and pulsing purple, and found himself considering where he was right now. Was he foolish to have not taken the deal? He could have returned to life. He could have returned with gear. But he didn't. He chose to move on, find himself under the care of his goddess, the Deceiver. They had made a contract, after all. Within that contract, he was under her service. He would serve her in the afterlife. Peering down into the water below, he saw flashes. Different things from his past. He saw, first, the fire. The hospital burning down from the outside perspective. Him inside. He saw, one last time, the face of Jared before he stabbed the daggers deep into his side and then fled from the burning building. He saw the faces of each of his companions. He saw Sudi. He saw Jade. He saw X. all of them sat there. Serenity. Each one of their faces reflected in the water. And as he reached his hand out, almost as if to touch these memories, see if they were real, if he was imagining things, he felt the cold water almost burn his hand. Just as soon as his fingertips made contact with it, recoiling, held his hand to his chest, sat staring at the water as the memories continued to play. Even now, he could remember. He could remember the road to Fallfield. He could remember entering the haze, battling this drug-addled Odiug. He could remember each moment on the road when he was a horse, when he fought the cockatrice with the rest of his companions, when Germain seemingly turned on them and then, in his guilt, flew into the air and thudded to the ground. He wondered if maybe Germain was here, somewhere on a boat on the river. It must have been the same. He turned to the boatmaster, this Chiron of a figure, said, "Hey, have you ever heard of a man named Germain Verhalt? I'm sure you've seen plenty, but have you known him?" The man just looked past him onwards down the river. "You're no help." And the man just pointed back into the river's waters. The most interaction he had otherwise received. The closest thing to an answer. He turned his attention back to the waters. Memories from when they were in Timber Falls, fighting 2 giant toads. Memories from even before, as he lived in the Mistkeep. Memories of bounty hunters coming after him. Memories of he enjoying the evening with his dwarvish companion. Memories from further back even still. He saw the same visions as he had in his dreams. The young woman, tiefling, lavender-skinned, standing there, sadly holding a bundle. This red arm of a young baby, an infant tiefling, dangling limply from outside. Her baby had died. It was unfortunate, but this is life. He saw the woman continue her trek. She was finding a way to bring it back. She was finding a way to return her lost child. She climbed to the top of this snow-covered mountain, met by 2 dark figures that looked her over, looked at this bundle, and grabbed her by the arm, lifting her high above the ground, dangling as they dragged her off. And that was the end of his dreaming. Even now, though, more memories washed over him. Memories not quite of him. Memories of his life. Or rather, how he gained his life. The woman, with bundle in tow, and under the care of these hulking figures of blue skin, was dragged to a mouth of a cave, firelight crackling from the inside. Setting her down, these 2 figures stood to the side of the entryway watching her, waiting expectantly. Looking over them, the woman was afraid. They seemingly would not hurt her. Interestingly enough, then, She heard a voice from the inside, a beckoning voice, the voice of an old woman, a voice that he had heard before in his dreams. As the woman made her way inside, she found this pale blue-skinned old woman, almost like a frozen, rotting corpse, smiling back at her from across the firelight. This woman asked her what she wanted. The woman, his mother, showed the bundle. "I want my baby back." Just then, the woman smiled and took the bundle in her own arms, holding it and cradling it carefully. "I can help with this, but it requires a bit of a deal. You can have your baby back in 3 days' time. 3 days is all the time I will need to work with this. However, I will take from you that which I need to bring this baby warmth and life and happiness." His mother, being a good woman at this point, not as he had known her, agreed. After all, she was desperate. She wanted her baby back. She would give anything of herself to have her child returned. So the woman smiled and nodded. "I'll keep the bundle. When you return home, he will be waiting for you. Now go." And so, this tiefling did. She left unmolested by the hulking figures at the entrance, as she heard this cackling from inside of the cave, the shudder that came down her back, a little bit darker and colder than the actual chill of the mountain winds. But she made her way back, off out of sight. The image rippled in the stream as some sort of a creature underneath the surface moved. Flawed stood back a moment, unsure of what was happening. From there, he moved to the other side of the boat and saw the rest of the image continue to play. He saw the woman having returned home holding a baby, one baby that looked just like him, smiling and laughing, and for a moment she was happy. Before a window blew open, and the chill of the wind carried the cackle with it. And just like that, her purplish lavender skin grew a sickly shade of purple gray, no longer vibrant with life and warmth. That warmth and life moving, and out the window, up the mountain, almost carried by the wind itself. The image flickered back out, leaving Flawed to contemplate. His mother had done everything for him. She had sacrificed a part of herself to bring him back. Perhaps that was why she had been so cold. Perhaps there were reasons for why she had been so cruel. A reason for her turn to the darkest arts, necromancy. In time, the boat slowed, came to a stop along the edge of a river. And the ferryman set the pole down in the bottom of the boat, having anchored it to a stone, and stepped off, leaving Flawed standing on the boat. Following after, he made his way across this dark, rocky shoreline, continuing the rest of the riverway on foot, and just away as they veered off from the river, leaving it behind completely. They veered off slightly, a little closer towards the red glow from before. Not quite to it. The sounds of battle were still plenty far off. But another sound. A deep hum. Deeper and stronger than he had ever heard before. He could feel it in his chest. As they came to these dark, ebony gates with silver pearls lining them like stars. They opened, and out stepped the Dark Deceiver, smiling. She turned to the boat master and, with a nod, allowed him passage through the gate. Flawed, stepping up, gave a quick bow and just looked at her for a moment. He had just seen her, but here she radiated this power, this dark energy like wispy ribbons flowing through the air, almost like flowing shadow. She smiled at him. Your life is over. The contract, you are now under my service. You serve at my pleasure within this afterlife. Are you ready to take this on? With a smile, he thought back upon his memories, all of the mysteries of his existence, thought of his friends, thought of the life that they had shared, however brief, and the life that he had shared with others along the way. Yes, I'm ready.